it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. The night settled into that uneasy hush now. You know it, the kind where the air feels heavier, like something's leaning just a little too close, and you found your way here, which means you've already stepped beyond the edge of the familiar. I'll be with you guiding the way, just don't expect it to lead anywhere safe. So go on, lower the lights, let the world fall silent, settle in, if you can. Because tonight isn't just a single story, no, it's a collection, fragments of fear, each one different, each one patient in its own way. Some will creep in slowly, tightening their grip before you even notice. Others won't give you that courtesy, though. They arrive all at once, and every one of them is waiting. So if you're ready to find out what's hiding in the dark tonight, we shouldn't make them wait any longer. Jimmy and the Flower Bug's Pincers by A.P. Royal. I read something today that reminded me of Jimmy. Well, I'll admit it had been years since he crossed my mind. I sat at the kitchen table staring out at the tangerine sky. It was early and the smell of poached eggs and brewed coffee filled the air. The house was still, the family quietly laying in bed. Everything was calm, almost peaceful. So why did it feel like my heart was on fire and my stomach twisted in knots? Jimmy was a chubby child, the byproduct of a house that served sugar as a well-balanced diet. He waddled around the playground, unflattering rolls popping out of unexpected places. He wasn't the nicest or the brightest kid, and he definitely wasn't the prettiest. But what he was a force. He knew how to command respect, how to throw his weight around. He stood a foot taller than his classmates, and kids cowered in his presence. That was the power of big Jimmy Burke. I won't pretend our friendship was perfect. It had its fair share of ups and downs. Early on, I got too close. I opened myself up, and he wasn't ready. I played too close to the fire and suffered the consequences. As an adult, I walk around the world concealing those scars, those third-degree burns that never seem to heal or go away. I remember one time he pantsed me in gym class, shorts, underwear, and pride all on the floor. Another time was when he dunked my head in the toilet for not laughing hard enough at one of his jokes. One of those chicken crossing the road variations you've heard a million times. Well, it was hard to get close to Jimmy. He tried his best to test you, to push you away. And like a little whimpering dog, I always came back, loyal for some reason. Maybe it's because of the power he wielded. Or maybe because he gave me just enough attention, petted me a couple of times, and threw me a couple of scraps every now and then. Mainly, I think it was because I was afraid of being alone. The school was a cruel place for someone without friends. Well, those were the bad memories of Jimmy, the ones I buried deep away. Well, the memory I'm thinking of was a good one, his 9th birthday party. I was waiting at his front door, dressed in a Spider-Man outfit. I remember the feeling of the tight spandex and the excitement as he opened the door. I remember the welcoming stench of cigarettes, his mom and dad waving goodbye to mine. Jimmy was the Hulk, shirtless with every inch of his body painted green. His fat jiggled as he grabbed his gift bag from me. "Landon's here, everybody. Landon's here. Let's start the party." Our whole crew buzzed around the linoleum floor, pushing around toy cars and throwing cake down our gullets, and occasionally at others. Jimmy's mom was preoccupied with the phone, smoking a cigarette at the kitchen table. His dad was nowhere to be found, likely hiding from the chaos. In the middle of a Nerf gun shootout, Jimmy put a finger to his mouth. Shh. Everyone shut up. You could hear the rumble of a motor. The garage door was closing. "He's gone," Jimmy announced, raising his eyebrow. "Hey, you guys want to see something cool?" We all nodded. "Then be quiet and come with me." We tiptoed up the staircase, 5 miniature superheroes. We followed with bated breath as he led us to a locked door. Stuck to the door was a poster of a rock band I'd never seen before, The words, "Do not frickin' enter," were printed in bloody text. For a moment he disappeared into his parents' bedroom and used a hairpin to fiddle with the lock. Click. The door gave way to a messy, dark room. The walls were painted black and plastered with posters of monsters and gothic rock bands. But everyone's jaw dropped when they saw the glass tanks all stacked along the walls. We were in a trance, stepping over the clothing on the floor toward the humming red heat lamps and buzzing motors. It was a collection of creatures that I'd never seen before. I pressed my hand against the cold glass, marveling at the bright colors. "What's that, Jimmy?" He smiled. "That's a serpent starfish." He pointed at the thing with tentacles draped across a rock. "And those are angelfish and blennies," pointing to a vibrant, colorful school of fish swimming in unison. A resounding "whoa" came from the room. We slowly went from one tank to the next, wide-eyed in wonder. Jimmy continued the tour. "Five-bellied newt, boa constrictor, red-eyed tree frog." One by one he pointed, and we oohed and awed. I stopped while Jimmy continued. A small tank near the corner caught my eye. The inside looked like a rainforest, but with stunning pink flowers growing around a stump. Only one of the flowers was moving in a slow, hypnotic way. "Hey, Jimmy, what's this one?" The group stopped and followed Jimmy back to me, crouching to get a better look. "Ah, that's a good one, Lanny. That right there is a flower bug." "A flower bug?" "Yep. Ain't it pretty?" I couldn't keep my eyes off of it. The beautiful mix of white and fuchsia, the powerful pincers, the alien eyes. And the rest of the kids eventually lost interest and bolted out of the room. But not me. I lingered, marveling at the amazing insect. I only stopped when I heard the door creak shut, and the room got dark. "Hey, you want to see something really cool?" Jimmy whispered in the dark. My heart galloped in my chest. "Sure, what is it?" He turned on a flashlight and inched closer. "Then you gotta do something for me first. And don't tell anyone about what I'm about to do, or they'll kill me." In my teens, I worked at a pizza shop called Giovanni's Pies, the greasiest, cheesiest pizzas in the city. It was my first job as a lazy, skillless youth, so you can imagine what Giovanni had me do: wipe the counters and prep the pizzas. Just make sure you ain't step out of line or burn the damn place down," he'd warn. "Or it's your ass or your paycheck, you hear me?" Well, the pay wasn't great, but you could do the job with your eyes closed. The only real problem was the hours. Some nights we'd be on the clock until 2 a.m. The cravings of the degenerate party crowd seemed to really matter to Giovanni. But when you're young, you bounce back from sleep loss like a trampoline. Now I can't imagine how I survived with so little all those years. I walked across the empty parking lot toward my lonely station wagon. The wind was colder than usual that night, piercing and brutal as it shocked my system. I picked up the pace, walking through the light dusting of snow swirling around the lot. I hopped into the front seat and started the ignition. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. A person in the passenger seat. An old, pudgy, Eastern European-looking lady was staring at me across the vehicle. I screamed. "What the hell are you doing? Get out of my car!" She recoiled. "Oh, I'm so sorry, dear," she cried, her voice shaking. "I'll leave. I just didn't know what else to do. My son Michael was supposed to come get me from the pharmacy hours ago." She opened the passenger door, the wind howling. "Everything's closed. This door was open. It was just so cold, and I was desperate." I took a moment to calm my nerves, inhaling and exhaling slowly. The story seemed plausible. I did have a bad habit of forgetting to manually lock the doors in the old wagon. It was creepy, but the frigid temperature would have forced anyone to shelter. It was either have an awkward conversation or freeze to death out there. Just before she walked away, I yelled, "Hold on." She stared back, shivering. "Hey, can you give Michael a call?" She shook her head. I wish I could, but I don't have one of those cell phone thingamajigs. I pulled out my phone. Okay, come back in and shut the door. Right, what's his number? She rattled off a series of numbers. The call rang a few times and then went to voicemail. The recording said, "Hi, this is Aaron. Leave me a message at the beep." I hung up. Hey, I don't think that's the right one. She paused. Oh, darn. It's 3354, not 3534. I rang the new number with no luck. This time the number wasn't even registered to anyone. Ma'am, this one didn't work either. She let out a deep sigh. Oh, I'm sorry, dear. My memory just isn't what it used to be. Well, my patience was wearing thin. I was always taught to respect my elders, but this lady was seriously cutting into my precious bedtime. Listen, I don't know what else to do here. Oh, if it's not too much trouble, could I possibly get a ride home? I couldn't tell if it was the cold or if it was tremors, but her broad shoulders were shaking back and forth like a leaf in the wind. She continued, Oh, I know it's asking a lot, but I'd be so grateful. Well, I'm very close, no more than 5 minutes from here. It was my turn to sigh now. I cursed Michael under my breath as I tapped my head against the wheel. What's the address? Her eyes perked up. Oh, bless you, darling. 112 Nottingham Road. I put the address into Google Maps. 4-minute drive. Okay, let's go. She smiled warmly and patted me on the shoulder. Thank you, dear. You're such an angel. My stomach growled. I started the engine and pulled away. I'd almost turned out of the parking lot before I remembered. Oh, the pizza. The triple cheese that I'd cooked after hours, off the books. The one sitting on the counter. The one I'd planned to gorge while watching a movie before bed. Giovanni's menacing snarl formed in my mind, the vein pulsating in his neck. Your ass or you're a paycheck. I knew if I left the pizza, Giovanni would have questions. That was a problem because I valued both my ass and my paycheck. Oh, shit. I circled back and parked the car in front of Giovanni's. Sorry, I said. I have to run in for a moment. It'll only take a sec. The lady looked confused as I sprinted into the building. The box was still sitting on the counter. I opened it up and felt the layer of cheese. Cold. Ice cold. Normally I would have just grabbed it and headed home. Pizza was great in any condition, but tonight, for some reason, I was craving it piping hot. So I decided to quickly throw it back in the oven. 10 minutes to bake. It's free if it's late. The stupid slogan that was burned into my brain. Once the cheese was sizzling, I took it out and ran back to the vehicle. The car was empty, and she was gone. Jimmy went into the closet and grabbed a plastic container of something. What's that, Jimmy? Oh, it's feeding time, he said, an evil grin spreading across his face. The flies were buzzing around in a manic state, bouncing off the walls of the container. Just open the top slowly, he instructed as he proceeded to twist the top of the container and give it a shake. They flew in like bats out of hell. A lot of them landed on the flowers, the pretty fuchsia petals. A lightning swipe of the pincers crumpled their unsuspecting bodies. The stem of the flower shook from side to side as bit by bit was consumed. We watched for a while in awe as the flies began to slowly disappear. This is the coolest thing ever, Jimmy, I declared. I know, ain't it? He said, pausing to take it all in. Please don't tell anyone I did this. My mom said I have to wait. The animals are my brothers, but they'll be my responsibility when he leaves for college. He smiled. Just one more year, and they'll all be mine. We watched as the bug ate another and another. Oh, you think it'll get 'em all? I asked. No, he said, pointing to the corner of the tank. These flies only live for 24 hours. Most get eaten up, but some just whiz around the corner of the tank all day and die. Well, smart, I guess. Or dumb, or lucky, I guess. Just depends on how you look at it. He moved closer to the tank. Oh, look at the flower petals. The fuchsia's a lot deeper than the color of the bug's back. The texture's different, too. Come, look closely. I pressed my face against the glass as another head was ripped from its thorax. Wow, you're right. They are different. He smiled, getting to his feet. Yeah, it's subtle. Most people don't notice it. But maybe they can tell. He opened the door. Maybe it's subconscious or something. Hey, earlier you said you needed me to do something. He nodded, closing the door and locking it tight. Oh yeah, I just wanted you to promise to be my friend. We then jogged down the stairs, back toward the chaos. Of course, Jimmy. I promise. He put the newspaper down in quiet reflection, still thinking about Jimmy. All of the good times and some of the bad. I drained the last sip of coffee, the sunshine filling up the room, enjoying the last moments of peace before the family wakes. Well, no matter how hard you try to forget, the brain has a funny way of storing memories. All it needs is a trigger and that dusty moment resurfaces. Whether you like it or not, it's out of your control. Jimmy did get his chance to care for the animals. For a couple of months we handled them with care, cleaning the tanks, feeding the creatures, making sure the salt levels were adequate. I got to see the flower bug up close, who we eventually named Richie. He even got to handle him a few times, later learning that he was an orchid mantis. It was an amazing time. Until his brother came home from school for Thanksgiving unannounced. His brother found out that Jimmy had made a discovery. Jimmy found his brother's panty stash in the closet and snooped around where he shouldn't have. White and purple lacy undies, hidden and covered in blood. They found Jimmy's face bashed in, floating in the ravine. His brother was always friendly to me, but he never looked the type. Well, apparently he'd been pounding Jimmy's head in for years, but he made it count this time. And that was the worst memory of Jimmy. Not one I cared to recall. But this wasn't the memory that clawed at me, the one that wouldn't go away. The headline read, "Daring Escape for Good Samaritan." A teenager had offered a ride to someone she thought was in need and claimed to escape a near abduction. I read it again, and my stomach clenched. The teen said she sensed something from the beginning, something off that she couldn't explain. The encounter felt awkward. The passenger seemed really nervous, shaking, and it was the glimpse of duct tape in the bag that finally forced her hand. By some smart or dumb stroke of luck, she'd decided to leave. Out of nowhere, my daughter and son barreled down the hall. They surprised me, hanging off my back, as I smiled and ruffled their hair. My wife groggily trudged in, heading straight to the coffee maker. The start of another beautiful, hectic day. After breakfast, I decided to take a drive down O'Hara, south on Upton Road, left on 52nd Street. The old Metropolitan Plaza was the same. All the businesses were just as I remembered. There was Giovanni's Pies, Carlton's Electronics, Cece's Coffee, Coin and Go Laundry. Only this time, I looked closer. I drove slowly through the lot. I was looking for an answer to the question that had been gnawing at me all those years. My hands quivered on the wheel as I made 3 laps around the place. I'd confirmed my biggest fear. There was no pharmacy in the plaza. I sat in my car, a sweaty mess, thinking about Jimmy. That night, he'd looked out for me, and I've been looking closely ever since. Workplace Behavioral Analysis by Weird Bryce Guy. Some people have a fear of public speaking, varying levels of stage fright that can range from stuttering during presentations to freezing up the moment they see the audience before them. I suffer from a similar condition, except that I have a fear of public existing. Any time I'm out in public, whether it's going out for a walk or to get the mail, I invariably succumb to an extreme fit of nervousness, an overwhelming anxiety that makes each movement physically laborious. And this feeling deepens, intensifies with each person present in the immediate vicinity. It's literally debilitating. Now, this particular condition isn't baseless in origin. I did not simply wake up one day inexplicably afraid of crowds, nor was I born with some sort of genetically inherited predisposition towards shyness. When I was a teenager, I was pranked, harshly. And the school bully, he applied his tortures generally, targeting everyone with equal malice. I decided one day to slip some laxatives into my ground beef tacos. Oh, I love tacos and all dishes in Mexican cuisine. Being a hungry teenager, I didn't examine my taco for foreign contaminants. I had no reason to. I ate it quickly, ravenously, oblivious to the devilish snickering happening around me. 5 minutes later, in the line for another taco, Mum had supplied me with extra money that day just for the occasion. I felt the laxative kick in. My bowels were primed to deliver a molten mess. I didn't even make it out of the lunchroom. And as if the school staff responsible for setting up the lunch tables had collaborated with the bully, I couldn't weave through these island-like obstructions fast enough. Halfway across the room, I lost control, in the worst way possible. Oh, it shot out of me, audibly, down my shorts. Yeah, it was unfortunately summer, with a sickening squelch splattering the floor. I wouldn't have made the lunchroom quieter if I'd self-immolated. All eyes turned to me, and the most mocking, heart-sinking laughter arose. Laughter that rang aloud in my head for days, weeks, months afterwards. Thankfully, as I've mentioned before, the equality-minded bully soon set his sights on a new target. And while no one ever forgot that I'd shat myself, other poor souls were similarly embarrassed and socially ostracized. And that's why I've feared going out in public for the last 10 or so years. And yet I never lost my love for tacos, burritos, enchiladas, carne asada fries, and so on. Oh, all those delicious combinations of spicy meats, cheese, veggies, and carbs. Well, luckily, I managed to secure a post-high school job that not only paid well but allowed me to work from home. Home being the living quarters within the compound of the facility that employs me. My work isn't really important to the story I have to tell. I monitored and logged things, then sent the data to someone else within the compound-wide network, and they did with it what they would. I was able to live my life without direct contact with anyone, and while we were obviously allowed to leave the compound whenever we wanted, I rarely had reason to. My parents aren't in the picture, and all my friends were a click away. I got my groceries and any other necessary items delivered. Life was simple, comfortably modern, undisturbed and unobserved. Or so I thought. Due to my dietary habits, not just Mexican but all spice-laden foods, I often relieve myself of gas throughout the day. I don't believe I suffer from any actual condition of gastrointestinal weakness or sensitivity, and neither do I think that I'm addicted to the previously mentioned foods. I just think that, without the social pressures to refrain from passing gas, I've grown accustomed to doing it whenever. I'm sure the average person would fart a lot more if they knew they wouldn't be ridiculed for it. Oh, because I'm accustomed to doing it. Going outside to retrieve the mail, the only thing I bizarrely can't have brought to my door, is an emotionally harrowing experience. The mail is housed within a large room, delivered to the specific slots of the residence. We must retrieve our mail ourselves using the key provided to us upon acceptance into employment. Now, ordinarily, I can manage the trip there and back without too much trouble. A bit of sweating, a slightly quickened pace, a brief uptick in heart rate. But if there's another person there, it becomes, or feels like it becomes, a matter of life and death. A dire-fated journey to retrieve an item whose importance diminishes with each person I happen to spot on the way there. I've forsaken my mail countless times just because someone had been walking in a direction entirely different from my destination. The worst part is that, lately, there seems to always be someone around. Some resident or facility worker who pops into my sight just as I'm entering the mailroom or sometime before. and since last month I've been forced to retrieve my mail daily after a compound-wide notice was issued that residents are not to neglect their mail due to the small capacity of the slots. Well, thankfully, the facility's administration was kind enough not to point me out, although the mailman, who elicits the same feeling in me as everyone else, started giving me dirty looks whenever he passed by. To cope with this mandate of forced mail retrieval, I started listening to music, using the noise to cancel out the sounds of footsteps, which always alert me to the presence of another person. I had nothing to help with their visual detection. I still needed to see. While this was a good idea on paper, it had unforeseen and disastrous consequences 2 weeks ago. I just grabbed my mail and was halfway home when the music in my ears betrayed me. I'd had beef chorizo, egg, and salsa burrito for breakfast. A truly delicious combination that was, of course, an intestinal powder keg. It was a good day. I'd chosen music I could really get into, something that was loud and wild enough to really capture and hold my focus. I was so into it, so mentally immersed in the song, that I briefly forgot to monitor the other functions of my body. Perhaps 30 meters from my apartment, I let one slip. Well, I didn't hear it. I couldn't have, with the music blaring through my earphones. But I felt it, and the feeling alone filled me with an immediate and powerful dread, because I knew, in some dim way, that there were others around. When I saw the first person walk around the corner, face contorted into a mixed expression of amusement and confusion, I saw the little control I'd retroactively applied to that area. I don't know if nervous farting is a normal thing, but for me, in that increasingly awful moment, it was. Thankfully, my nerves hadn't denied me the ability to walk, so I at least made progress towards my apartment as gas continuously slipped out. But with nearly every step I took, people popped into view as if summoned by some fart alarm, conjured by some incantation of flatulence. It got to a point where I had a small crowd following me and a greater crowd converging towards me before I finally managed to enter my apartment, lock the door, and unleash the full extent of my gastrointestinal fury. Weirdly, the crowd dispersed almost immediately after I'd made it inside. There was a murmur, a few stifled laughs, but nothing remotely close to the almost diabolic chorus of laughter I'd experienced all those years ago in school. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally, and curled up into a ball on my couch. While the experience was certainly mortifying, it had also been odd. I wasn't able to exactly understand why until I logged into the facility's network later to do some work. After compiling my daily report to send up the chain, I happened to glance at the list of online users, and on a vague impulse expanded the list to view all the facility's personnel. I stared at this list for a while, growing increasingly unsettled with time as I scanned the series of names. There were 28 people in total on the list. There had been at least 50 people following me earlier in the day. Somehow, almost double the compound's capacity had converged upon me in the incredible span of only a few moments. Something wasn't right. I went to sleep, or at least put myself to bed, with the suspicion that the facility was harboring secrets, that there was more to its research than it let on. In the morning, after a mostly restless night, I logged onto my computer to begin the day's work, and was met with quite a shocking sight. The personnel list had grown from 28 to 54. I scrolled through the list, recognizing only half of the names there, while the others were entirely unfamiliar to me. The departments in which these new phantom users worked were real departments, although because I'd never physically visited them, hadn't had any reason to, I couldn't then verify whether or not the persons listed within them actually worked there. Even more surprising was the fact that I hadn't received any emails about the previous day's incident, nor had there been any compound-wide notices or bulletins posted. It was as if the near instantaneous gathering of the entire compound's personnel hadn't happened, as if my incredibly embarrassing gaseous attack hadn't happened. I rarely have the need to directly communicate with other network users. I simply download assignment packets and upload my log data through a server, so I didn't have anyone I could casually talk with about the bizarre incident, or apparent lack thereof. There are general forums for discussing common issues, communicating new protocols and other universally useful information, but nothing that would have been an appropriate place to address or investigate what happened. Unsettled, confused, and perhaps even afraid, though at the time I couldn't describe why, I left it alone and went about my day. During one of my leisurely walks, as mandated by the facility's exercise initiative, another bizarre thing happened. I typically stray from the usual walking paths that wrap around the compound and instead venture into the flat, pseudo-desert expanse of barren land beyond the facility's perimeter. A place where, well, for the first 2 years of my employment, I had yet to see another soul explore. But 2 days after the incident, during a normal walk, I felt that age-old urge to relieve myself, having had leftover goat curry for lunch. Not having any reason to refrain from doing it, I let some gas slip out. Before the whistle had even ceased, a woman suddenly entered my peripheral vision, jogging a few meters away towards the limits of the expanse, where a rarely trafficked highway lies. Dread flourished anew, and I forcibly stopped the gaseous flow, despite there still being a few puffs to let out. The woman glanced in my direction, and my soul froze over as I noticed her vacant ears, devoid of earphones. Oh, she'd heard the roar of my nethermost region. I quickly turned away, mortified beyond measure, and made my way back to my apartment. Along the way, people seemed to pop up with truly disconcerting suddenness, emerging into view like wooden pop-ups in a shooting gallery. I made eye contact with no one, but kept a mental count of each person I passed. By the time I had arrived at my apartment, the count had reached 43. Considering the time of day, it was extremely odd that there were so many people out and about, especially since many of the compound's occupants were responsible for data logging and essential operations that could only be conducted during the day. Once again, with the ostensible privacy of my apartment, I sat before my computer and, having no other recourse, emailed my supervisor with a question, something I hadn't done since my first week on the job. My question had been simple, straightforward, and yet his response was very vague, almost elusive. The subsequent conversation only served to worsen my anxiety, and even inspired actual fear by the time it had reached its conclusion. Well, here is the transcript. Hello, I know it's unusual for me to be emailing you, considering the lack of communication between us since my initial onboarding, but I cannot think of anywhere else to turn. Recently I've noticed what I can only describe as strange and unprecedented behavior from my colleagues here. Behavior that seems focused on me. It seems as if I'm being unduly monitored, or at least persistently followed, by nearly the entirety of the available staff. I've checked the personnel list and have noticed an increase in the users listed, nearly double the amount. Well, I wasn't aware of any hiring event. There were no notices of orientation dates or announcements of department restructuring. Do you have any idea of what's going on, and why I seem to be at the center of it all? There's no need to worry. The facility's operation cannot be fully understood by a single individual, and rarely does the administration bother to dispense information pertaining to the grander aspects of our work. Do not worry. Operations are going well, and your work is being reviewed positively. While I'm glad to hear that I'm performing my duties adequately, I don't see what that has to do with the fact that I'm being followed whenever I go out on errands and walks. As my immediate supervisor, surely you must have some idea of why I'm receiving this special and admittedly discomforting attention. It is okay. The situation is being monitored. Data is being recorded and passed along to the necessary analytical teams. No observation is wasted. You are performing well and needn't alter your behavior in anticipation of any modifiers. If you have any further questions, please consider keeping them to yourself and resuming your daily tasks. End of transcript. In the space of about 10 minutes, my anxiety had blossomed into full-blown panic. My supervisor had clearly been withholding information, and while he was right, I didn't have any entitlement to information regarding the grander scheme of operations, I was still nonetheless owed an explanation for why my privacy and personal space was being intruded upon by strangers. Well, terror can drive people to do stupid, impulsive things if they believe that in doing so, they'll save themselves from whatever is causing them stress or posing a threat to their life. Well, my terror drove me to try something that was, for me, completely unheard of. When the day came around to order groceries, I requisitioned sandwich materials, soups, fruits, cereal, and juices. Nothing that would be a major intestinal irritant, well, compared to my usual spicy and cheesy diet. For an entire week, I produced very little gas, and I was still hounded with only the faintest pretense of subtlety by other residents. I was followed closely wherever I went, as if my pursuers hoped to catch me off guard, farting my heart out. There was an air of aggravation throughout the compound, at least when I was outside to perceive it. Halfway through the week, my supervisor even contacted me, saying that I should resume activity as usual for the continued operational efficiency of the facility and your own personal safety, even though I hadn't deviated from my daily habits or my actual work in the slightest way. Only my diet had changed, and the visible effect this change had upon the community was evidence enough that I was being closely and unfairly monitored for some extremely strange reason. The suggestion that my well-being would be put at risk only served to increase my anxiety about the circumstances and deepen my distrust of my employers and colleagues. I'd hoped that they'd eventually leave me alone and find another subject to harass and monitor, sort of like how the school bully had moved on to another victim after ruining my social standing. This hope was crushed when a food truck pulled into the facility, bearing a sign that read, "Tacos, burritos, and more. Cheap, cheesy, meaty, and spicy." An event that had never, in the history of my employment, happened before. Concurrent with the arrival of the truck was the sudden closure of the mailroom, right before I could step inside and retrieve a package I'd been anticipating. There was, allegedly, an unforeseen plumbing issue, and the mailroom needed to be drained of water. I had been just about to walk inside when the mail attendant stopped me and informed me of the dubious situation. When I turned around, I came face to face with that accursed food truck and its sign, which seemed to advertise specifically to me. And there were, of course, others around, and while it had been a warm day, it was obvious that their visible perspiration was owed to an anxious anticipation of my behavior, rather than the heat. They were waiting to see what I'd do, since I had, for the entire week, not let out the smallest, softest puff of gas in a public space. But embarrassment and terror had endowed me with a preternatural sense of self-control, a psychological resilience to that culinary predilection that I had indulged in without abstinence my whole life. I walked right past that truck, noticing even the driver's eyes and eerily welcoming smile follow me as I ignored the scents of spiced meats and steamed rice. Unfortunately, this was the final straw for the facility. A crowd gathered behind me as I strode away, dropping performances of absent-mindedness and casualness. They pursued me with clear intent, marching along in ranks, silent and grim-faced. Doors opened as I passed them, and from each exited at least one person who joined the trailing army. When I rounded a corner, I was met with a wall of people, their faces sternly set, their arms crossed before them, with syringes gripped tightly in their hands. Cut off, hemmed in by row after row of familiar faces and complete strangers, well beyond the 50+ I counted earlier, I could do nothing but await the fate that was to be forced upon me. No one spoke, but a moment later the food truck careened around the corner, and the wall before me briefly parted to allow it passage. The food-harboring vehicle came to rest right in front of me, and the smells from within wafted out deliciously, intoxicatingly. Wordlessly, an arm extended from the window, and in its hand was a burrito bloated with savory contents and dripping with grease. The eyes of the man who'd offered it were darkly shaded by the cap he wore, though his mouth was visible, and the smile that had been there only moments ago was now an unsettlingly severe frown. Fearing a fate worse than the one presented to me by the driver, no good can come from forcible injections by an ominously gathered crowd, I took hold of the proffered burrito. The weight was almost staggering. It was truly an attestation to the chef's strength that he'd managed to hold the thing outstretched for even a few moments. Gripping it with both hands before an audience of perhaps 100 demonically faced people, I bit into the burrito, tasting the ultra-palatable combination of meats, veggies, cheese, and sauces. Against myself, I ate the entire thing with more fervor than a starving wolf would consume a fresh kill. I tore into the tortilla like a mortally dehydrated man might tear into a plastic-wrapped case of bottled water. When I was finished and my fingers had been licked clean of the juices, I looked up to the crowd, knowing what they expected to happen next. Their faces were full, all of them, of deep satisfaction, a fulfillment that went beyond having witnessed an entertaining event. Happiness is too light of a word to describe their expressions. Scientific ecstasy is a more befitting description. I realized then the truth of my professional purpose within the compound. The work I did was inconsequential, unimportant. The real data I contributed to the facility was my output of farts and the resultant emotional turmoil generated within me when they were witnessed in a public setting. Like the streams of data that I oversaw and reported, my gaseous streams were similarly studied. My modification was intentionally induced, charted, and evaluated for some gross, cryptic purpose. Left without options and utterly exhausted by the relentless harassment and frightening pursuits, I gave them what they wanted. I gave them more than they wanted. The fart swelled to truly immense sonic proportions, drowning out even the rumbling of the truck's engine. I held nothing back, allowed myself to produce more than I'd ever had before, aided not only by the quickly digested burrito, but by the farts I'd withheld throughout the week. The abdominal pressure was released in a great tumultuous thunderclap that shook cheeks and polluted the immediate atmosphere with an olfactorily debilitating stench. The crowd, unprepared for and revolted by this enormous fart, immediately dispersed, some fleeing to the buildings from which they'd come, others running mindlessly, unable to think clearly amidst the chaos of my gaseous outburst. No longer surrounded, I continued my flatulent bombardment while weaving in and out of buildings. When I finally reached my apartment, I gathered together what belongings I could carry, then left the building and headed for the parking lot. There were small crowds of people huddled about, all brandishing syringes, all mean-faced and watching, though none of them converged on me for fear of being crop-dusted. I even saw my supervisor as I reached the part of the lot wherein my car sat. He tried to get my attention, waving toward me from a vacant corner of the lot. But I knew he'd only try and restrain me or distract me while someone else rushed in to subdue me. His face bore a smile, though it was obvious that it was insincere. His feigned kindness an act to mask the vehemence within. There were no syringes in his hands, but his posture was one of confrontational readiness. Upon reaching my car, I let rip a final, triumphant, rearward discharge, scattering the few brave souls that had dared to attempt my capture at the last moment. I then drove out of the lot and left the compound without looking back. I have no intentions of going back until I receive answers and a promise that they will cease monitoring my bodily functions and dietary habits. It's a well-paying job, and while their intentions may be nefarious, it is nonetheless the only viable option of employment that I have. Considering how they were able to muster up such a sizable force of people within what felt like a short moment's notice, I won't be disclosing the name of the company, for fear that they'll use their apparent power and influence to silence me. The Up Above by L. Pudney. Space, the final frontier, infinity and beyond, or as my younger brother simply called it, the Up Above. Ever since he learned to walk, he was fascinated with the sky. He would look up at it almost every night, admiring the twinkling stars up above. I'll always remember the night when he first said that he wanted to explore space. He was looking up at the small pinpricks of light that were scattered across the black sky and said, "Dad, I want to go to the up above." My dad, who was also in the garden with my brother and me, looked down at him and replied, "The up above? Where's that, Marty?" Marty raised his little arm and pointed straight upwards towards outer space and boldly said, "There." In the following couple of years, Marty's obsession with space and the cosmos grew. For his 5th birthday, my parents bought him a telescope, which he routinely used every night. He made his own astronaut helmet, which was created with a bucket and a lot of tin foil. When Marty started spending more time in bed, Mum and Dad stuck hundreds of glow-in-the-dark stars all across his bedroom ceiling. They spread across his room, creating a large galaxy that Marty would be able to go to sleep amongst. I fondly remember walking past his bedroom, peeking in, and seeing him fast asleep with a smile on his face as the glowing stars shone all around him. While I didn't share Marty's obsession with space, I was more interested in the creatures that resided on our own planet. Animals were what captivated me, especially one animal in particular. Outside my bedroom windows, a large streetlight illuminated a large portion of our front garden and the road. The long black pole that was cemented into the pavement stood up high, and like a moth to a flame, this light attracted a small squirrel that would climb it each night. I would patiently wait at my window at dusk and eagerly await the arrival of the cute rodent, and each night he did not disappoint me. The squirrel would appear and would start to climb the metal pole, ascending to its top. On one particular night, I watched in awe as the furry animal gracefully climbed up the streetlight. The squirrel was almost at the top when the bright light suddenly flickered out. The street and the garden were plunged into darkness. Then something happened that I didn't think possible. The pitch-black night sky grew even darker. A black shadow drifted through the air, darkening everything it touched. I saw it slowly encroach upon the street, and then it glided into our front yard. The shadow moved with unnatural purpose, like it knew exactly where it was heading. It slowly drifted along the garden and towards the house, looming over the yard and turning the grass black. As it approached the front door, the porch light flickered out too, unable to compete with the rich darkness of the shadow. I sat at the window, overcome with fear at what I was looking at. I didn't know whether to run or to hide. Before I could decide, I heard a popping sound and then a slight fizzle. Then I heard the same 2 noises again, this time slightly closer to me. And that's when my mind made its decision. I wouldn't run and I wouldn't hide. My brain concluded that I needed to help Marty. His body was growing weaker by the day, so I knew he wouldn't be able to defend himself if it came to that. I'd have to be the one to stand up for him. I stood at my bedroom door for a moment, trying to control my breathing and summon enough courage to go out of the safety of my room. With one final intake of breath, I quietly opened the door and crept out into the hallway. The long corridor was dark, but not as dark as the garden had been when the shadow was hovering over it. Whatever the strange shadow was, it didn't appear to be in the hallway. I tiptoed along the hallway, trying to stay silent as I moved toward my 6-year-old brother's room. Pop! Fizzle! I darted my head behind me to see what had made the noise. I saw that the hallway light bulb had blown up, and just behind it a dark shadow loomed. My feet and legs went into autopilot, and I quickly made my way down the rest of the hallway and burst into Marty's bedroom. Marty was still asleep, looking even skinnier than when I'd seen him a few hours ago. His sleeping body was illuminated by the glowing galaxy that was his bedroom. I darted over to his bedside and shook him awake. He slowly opened his tired eyes and looked up at me in confusion. "Hey, you all right, Marty?" I asked in a whisper. "Yeah. Why?" he puzzledly asked in a sickly voice that I'd been forced to get accustomed to. Before I could respond, Marty's room became darker than it had ever been before. The shadow had lurked its way down the hallway and now had started to enter the room we were in. I looked up towards the ceiling, and the glow-in-the-dark stars that were scattered across it were no longer visible. "What happened? I can't see," I heard Marty say in a frightened voice. I reached out towards his hand and clasped it. I was scared beyond belief, but I had to stay composed for my brother. I opened my mouth to whisper a response, but as I did, something appeared within the shadow. And when I say something, I mean lots of little things. Tiny pinpricks of light flashed out of the blackness, like hundreds of tiny stars spread out across a dark night sky. I heard Marty let out a sound of astonishment, but I was more afraid. I knew what these lights were. I don't know how I knew exactly, but I could just tell. There were numerous pairs of eyes twinkling from inside the black shadow that had carried them here. The hundreds of eyes stared down at my brother and me from all directions in the room. I wasn't sure what exactly they wanted, but when I heard the low growl, I knew it wasn't something good. I had to get Marty out of there. He didn't seem afraid, but I just had a feeling that we weren't safe. Well, the absence of fear that Marty felt, I made up for. My heart pounded in my chest like a meteor shower smashing into earth. Somehow, in my panic state, my mind produced an idea of how to get my little brother out of the room without him becoming afraid. I dropped to my knees and began to feel around the floor with my hands, still conscious of the many eyes that were looking at me. I then felt what I'd been looking for, Marty's astronaut helmet. I picked it up with both hands and scrounged around to find Marty. I felt his head, so I reached out and placed the spaceman helmet onto it. I then felt for his small hand and firmly grasped it. "You've always wanted to go up above. Well, Marty, you've made it," I said to him quietly, trying to disguise my own fear. But I could feel the smile that beamed off his face as he thought he was actually going to see outer space after all. I helped Marty to his feet, and as I did, I felt how weak he had become. I tried my best to help him walk out of his room and away from the shadow. We slowly stumbled through the black abyss, with the only light available being the glowing eyes that watched our every move. With each step, I felt Marty's excitement grow, as it did look like we were walking through a cosmic galaxy. It was Marty's dream to go up above and walk amongst the stars. With each step growing his excitement, I felt him growing weaker. I needed to support his weight more and more. Also, the further we moved, the more the shadow crept behind us. I was scared of what this thing was going to do to us, but I had to stay strong. And then I heard a thud, and I felt Marty hit the floor. I stopped suddenly and tried to help him up. As I did, I saw the dark shadow and the eyes also move towards where Marty had fallen. They descended onto him like vultures onto a dying animal. I screamed for them to stop, for them to leave him alone, but they kept surrounding my brother. The shadow then disappeared, allowing some light to enter my eyes once again. I rushed over to Marty, who was still lying on the floor. Behind me, I heard his door swing open, and both my parents rushed in. I looked back at Marty, who was lying on the ground, completely still. Well, the one thing I'll always remember about that night, the night I lost my brother, is the large smile that was plastered on his face. The smile that formed when he thought he was going on his space walk. Well, to this day, I'm still unsure about that thing that came from my brother and me that night. I still don't know if they're what caused Marty's life to be cut short, or whether his sickness took him first. All I know is that every night, I look up into the night sky and look up above. I look towards the pale shining orb in the sky, but I don't see a man on the moon looking back at me. I see a little boy. I Saw Heaven by V. Admiral. Now, for full context, I am a crime scene cleaner. I'm not normally allowed to discuss my work in any means, but it's more a risk of getting fired than it is any legal trouble. I couldn't possibly care any less about getting fired at this point. I might quit, if anything. I've been in this job for about 6 years now. I clean up anything crime-related, from hoarding situations to violent murders. It doesn't affect me much anymore, but, well, I can't say it doesn't disgust me every time. There's nothing I lose sleep over now, though. I'm not always cleaning by myself. There's other people around, detectives, family, other cleaners, whatever. It's more rare for me to be completely alone on the job, really. But today I was. It was thought to be a suicide, and that's why they let me stay on the scene alone to clean. With murders and such, there's always detectives and police around, without fail. Today I was by myself, save for the single police officer sitting a few rooms away going through all the notes the victim had written to himself. The scene was as gross as I often deal with. Blood and dirty grey brain matter splattered out against the wall and floor. Tiny bone fragments from where he'd shot himself through the skull. The body had already been removed, and the bathroom examined in detail. All that remained was for me to eradicate the mess. It was eerily quiet that morning once everyone else had left. For a while I could hear the officer shuffling through papers, occasionally scribbling down some notes of his own. I didn't think much of it when the rustling stopped. He was probably just looking at a long note or analysing it in detail. Then I heard a thud and a door opening. I stopped what I was doing, relentlessly scrubbing down the sink, and listened. It was dead silent now, other than the air conditioning. Hesitant, I stuck my head out of the bathroom and glanced down the hall, calling out to the officer I knew was only a good 10 feet away in the study. Officer Parks? There was no reply. I exited the bathroom and took a few steps to the study. The door was open, and as I leaned in, I saw Officer Parks sitting with his head on the desk. His back still rose and fell, telling me he was alive, but the shallow pace said it wasn't by much, certainly not conscious. I thought about going in and shaking him, or just grabbing his radio and calling for backup. But my hands were under several layers of bloody gloves, so I started taking them off, and then I noticed an unnatural smell. I didn't recognize what it was, but it certainly wasn't a normal house scent. It was some kind of gas. I was definitely not about to take off my hazmat suit mask to investigate. I started to look for a source with a weak lead while still struggling my gloves off. Then I heard footsteps. I couldn't turn all the way around in time. Cold metal slammed against my skull, and I was out with no second to spare. When I found my consciousness floating to the surface, I wasn't quite sure where I was. The ground my cheek was squished against didn't feel like the hardwood floors of that house, or even the carpet in the study. It was soft, gentle, welcoming. I gathered my strength and breath, and I lifted my head. In front of me was a wide, sprawling staircase. I couldn't bring myself to look up any further, so I reached up and placed one hand on the bottom step. It was cold. Moving my other hand forward to the second step, I began to pull myself to the top of the stairs. The process was slow, arduous, painful, but there was this undeniable voice in my head begging me to keep going up. Finally, one reach of my left hand seized nothing. I was on even ground. I continued to crawl forward until my hand scraped what seemed to be a fence. Using it as a ladder, I pulled myself to my feet, finally looking up at my surroundings. I didn't stand on clouds, but rather souls. They glowed gently beneath me, but quivered when I tried to step forward. The fence I leaned against was pearly white with quartz-like pillars that stretched beyond my eyesight. Dark veins ran through it, pulsing as if the very material they were built from was alive. There was a heavy-looking lock on the gate that was marked with a strange symbol. It had no key or passcode, just a small hole. I didn't dare look beyond the gate yet. I turned my head a little more, looking for any signs of life. There was only a little lamb sitting asleep in front of the gate, and it was the purest white I'd ever seen. Slowly I started towards it, falling to my knees next to the delicate sleeping lamb. My hand rested on its head almost instinctively. It didn't move. I scratched behind its ears, and it began to stir, much to my relief. It was just a small animal, but any life was comfort at that moment. The lamb opened its eyes and looked at me. My whole body felt like it had frozen. It had such human eyes, and it stared so deeply into me like it could read my every thought and feeling. It gave a gentle bah and looked beyond the gate. I finally worked up the courage to follow its gaze and see into the kingdom of God. I can't truly describe what I saw. It was otherworldly, unlike anything I've ever experienced with my senses before. There are few words I could possibly use to express heaven. Awe-inspiring, daunting, devastating, a magnificent desolation. In the truest sense I could ever mean it, completely terrifying. I tore my eyes from the unseemly sight and faced the lamb again. It still stared at me with its horrible human gaze. I looked dead into the eyes of God and wept. I sobbed, crying terribly like I'd never done before. My body seized up, practically convulsing, until the tears bore me back to unconsciousness. When I could open my eyes again, all I could see were a pair of shoes. Someone was standing in front of me. My vision was blurred, blood dripping into my eyes, but I could just barely make out the person walking away from me holding a metal mallet. He was tall and with slick black hair, and he turned to face me only once before walking out the back door. I suppose my eyes were glazed over enough that he thought I was out. I lay there for a long time. Don't know how long exactly. My head was brimming with thoughts I'd never truly experienced. Violence. Being a crime scene cleaner only made me ever more against violence, but then, as I lay there concussed, it was all I could think about. What it means to sin. I thought about this blurry man and his mallet, whatever he'd done to Officer Parks, what he may have done to the person whose body I'd just been cleaning up, and if he may come back. And that was what did it. The thought he might come back and finish me off was enough to make me force myself up. I dragged myself back out to my car, flopping down in the driver's seat and sitting there. I looked down at my hands. I was still in my hazmat suit, which I usually have to take off before I get back in the car. But I didn't care anymore. I drove home. Definitely not my smartest idea, considering the throbbing pain in my head, but I returned to my apartment anyway. Well, to be honest, I'm only writing this out because I've been trying to drive the thoughts away. And it hasn't helped. I want absolutely nothing more than to buy my ticket to hell with bloody hands. I should make that man pay for what he made me see. I'm going to find him again and make him witness what I had to. He'll face retribution, and one day, so will I, once again. The Girl from the Deep by Corpse Child. I met Carly 2 years ago. I remember how we met too. It was honestly a bit of a freak occurrence. At the time, me and a friend of mine, Caleb, were spending the summer in his grandparents' old beach house up in Myrtle Beach. I remember I was standing in line at the movies, wigging out to Caleb about the new Halloween movie. Hey, I heard it was directed by the dudes who made Saw, I remember shouting in his face. Yeah, the suck-ass ones, he said, scoffing. Remember how I was even jumping around like a little kid, hopped up on too much candy. Oh, come on. Can't we just watch the new Conjuring movie instead? I remember looking at him like, please tell me that was a bad joke. It was no small secret. I was not a fan of those movies. Oh, really, dude? I chided condescendingly. What? What's wrong with it? It's based on a true story. I made a fake, I'm so scared face. He rolled his eyes and added, at least it might have some actual scares in it. I've heard the new Halloween is just a gore fest. As if, I scoffed. Come on, how can you beat a classic like Halloween? In my excitement, I ended up bumping right into the girl in line behind me. This caused the both of us to end up toppling over onto the ground, me landing where else but right on top of her. Well, for a moment, we stared at each other on the ground, facing each other with both our eyes the size of serving platters. I stammered. Are you okay? She just continued staring back at me, face chiseled in an expression of pure shock. And from behind me, I could hear the sound of a photo snapping. Looking back, I saw Caleb standing there with a shit-eating grin on his face, holding his phone up. Well, seeing this, I scrambled off of her and to my feet. He started snickering, and I saw the crowd form around us. What the hell are you doing? Oh, don't mind me, he remarked, his grin still on full blast. I was about to try and rush him to snatch the phone and chuck it half across the street when, from behind me, I heard a soft voice ask, Was it a good pick? I snapped my head around to see her on her feet too. She was smirking kind of sheepishly. Instantly my body tensed up again. I stuttered, and she started giggling. My tongue froze again. Oh, come on, dingus. You're blowing it here. Get your shit together. Pete, I finally blurted. Huh? She asked. Come again? My name, Pete. I chuckled nervously, feeling less than 2 seconds from a heart attack, and shakily held my hand out to her. She stared at me for a moment, seemingly confused. Her eyes seemed to lock directly into mine. In a way, I could feel them boring through me. For a moment, I thought I could see something else in those eyes. Something like maybe worry or fear. Yo, Pete, you coming? I looked behind me to see that the line was moving. Caleb was third in line now to the ticket booth. I turned again back to her, her face still fixed in that worried-looking expression. I signaled to him that I'd be right there. He rolled his eyes and mouthed for me to hurry the hell up. Well, I was the one with the money for the tickets. Suddenly she started blinking rapidly, broken from her stupor. Oh, she asked. What happened? Oh, nothing. I just told you my name was Pete and you just sort of zoned out there. Is everything okay? She smiled again and nodded her head. Yeah, sorry, she said, chuckling. Sometimes I just get lost in myself, you know? Oh, I'm Carly, by the way. Oh, well, you want to join me and my buddy? We're going to see the new Halloween. Oh, sure, why not? She smiled and I bit my lip. I remember getting to the ticket booth and Caleb looking at me confused before then grinning, knowing I'd just scored a date with my little embarrassment. Well, the movie was enjoyable enough, but of course I was barely even concentrating on it. See, I'm one of those people that will actually talk during a movie, even in theaters, despite almost getting into a fist fight with some of the other patrons on certain occasions because of this. Caleb would usually try to ignore me, but not her. Actually, turns out Carly was the same way. So we spent the entire time gawking, laughing, and chatting back and forth about the movie. Though, like I said, I was barely focused on the screen. I couldn't take my eyes off of her for more than 30 seconds without finding my gaze locked right back on her. I mean, she was beautiful. Sure, drop-dead freaking gorgeous, in fact. But it wasn't just that. There was something else about her, something more... something, well, I don't know. Hypnotic in a way. Still, bottom line, that night went from a great night to freaking amazing because I'd made a fool of myself. Towards the end of the movie, despite what I just said, somehow I didn't notice she'd laid her head on my shoulder and fallen asleep. When I woke her up, she jolted awake, frightened. What happened? She exclaimed, throwing her head left and right. Whoa, sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. The movie's over, though. She began to relax a little. I could tell she was still tense about something, though. Hey, is everything okay? Oh, yeah. What time is it, though? I looked at my phone. 12:30. Her eyes bugged out again. Why? What's wrong? Oh, shit, my folks are gonna kill me. I was supposed to be home an hour ago. She started ruffling her hands frantically through her hair. Hey, it's okay. If you like, I can give you a... No, she blurted out, startling me. I mean, that's not necessary. There's really no trouble, I said, trying to be reassuring, and pretty obviously failing. She shook her head and said, No, really, it's fine. It's better if I just go ahead and go. I don't live that far away anyway. Plus, I stand a better chance of sneaking by unnoticed if I don't have another person announcing my presence, you know. Oh, yeah, I conceded. Well, I had fun tonight. She smiled and said, Me too. As she was turning to leave, I shot out my hand and shouted, Hey, wait! She spun around. I started digging in my pockets, pulling out my ticket stub and pen, and began scrawling my phone number. Yeah, call me sometime. We can maybe hang out again. She giggled before pocketing my number and leaving. And so yeah, that's how all that started. It was only the weekend after that our second date was booked, this time being to the water park. And that's where I learned she actually used to be on a high school swim team, as well as work in summer times as a lifeguard. Well, I'll say this much, she could swim circles around my ass. Turned out she lived right along the beachfront here in Myrtle Beach. I remember thinking how cool that was. I'm going to call you Ariel from now on, I joked. Her face seemed to sink at this. You know, from Little Mermaid. Oh, yeah, I know what you meant, just, I don't know, I'd really rather not be called that. Oh, I said, feeling stupid. Sorry. She shook her head and grinned again. Don't worry about it. Want to get some ice cream? I immediately jumped up with a resounding hell yeah. Just like at the movies, the date went awesome too. Spent the entire day splashing around at the water park like little kids. Well, soon 6 o'clock rolled around and it started to get dark. That's when Carly insisted that she leave. Are you sure? I mean, the park's open for another couple hours. Yeah, I think it's better I go ahead and head back though. She winked and added, smiling, it'd be nice to avoid another incident like last time, right? Oh, yeah, I said. Good point. I sighed, disappointed. I was really hoping to stay until closing. They turned the hot tubs on at 7 up until closing. She walked up to me, smiling, and put her arms around my waist, whispering in my ear, I had fun with you, though, handsome. Following this, she planted a kiss on my cheek that caused my heart to stop. She then turned and left, leaving me standing there, slack-jawed. Well, that night I was up, tossing and turning. Couldn't help it. I could not stop thinking about her. I kept having this dream where, for some reason, she's standing in front of the ocean, facing me, smiling warmly. She curls her finger, beckoning me forward. I start towards her, compelled by some force, like I'm being pulled by a leash towards her. She backs slowly into the ocean behind her. My own stride quickens. I reach out to her. Wait, I cry. She continues to be swallowed by the tide. I begin running for her, determined to reach her before she's gone. Just before the ocean swallows her, I leap forward, hurling myself head first like a spear into the water. Instantly, everything around me becomes black. I'm heading downwards, face first, into a black, boundless, fathomless abyss. I hear nothing. My ears feel like they've been stuffed with cotton. My arms and legs feel like feathers on my body. Despite this, my lungs don't burn. In fact, I don't feel my lungs anymore. Instead, I feel a sort of resonance around me, a sort of beating, like from a giant drum, pounding all around me. It gets more and more intense, and I begin to feel sharp pains shooting across the sides of my neck. From below, I see thousands of human-looking figures swimming up from the abyss below. They begin circling around me. My vision becomes blurry, rounded in a way. I look at my hands to see that there's now skin in between each finger, forming webs in between them. I'm shocked, horrified, and yet I'm unable to scream. The people close in around me, and I can see them clearly now. They're tall, green, and scaly, with palpitating gills on their necks and webbed hands. Each and every one of them look the same, like the gill man from the creature from the Black Lagoon. One of them, a female, judging from the appearance, or at least the aquatic resemblance, of breasts. I just float, seemingly suspended in place, defying gravity in the dark, murky depths of the ocean. The fish creature's eyes lock onto me. I'm once again spellbound. She puts her webbed hands around my face, puckers her scaly lips, and... Pete! I was instantly pulled out of the dream. I was standing outside on the back deck of the condo we were in my boxers. Oh, how the hell did I get here? Pete, bro, what the heck's going on with you? He asked, sounding more just shocked at the bizarreness of it. First you toss around in the bed, muttering to yourself like a crazy person. Now I found you out here, damn near in the buff. Bro, you been smoking? For a moment, I just stood there. Didn't know how to begin making any kind of excuse. To even do that, I'd have to have understood somewhat what the hell was going on. But I didn't. All I knew at the moment was that one moment I'm sleeping, dreaming about chasing a pretty girl into the ocean. The next, I'm dreaming of being surrounded by fish people and becoming one myself. And now, there I was, out in the open, in my frickin' skivvies. Needless to say, I was far beyond confused. I stuttered. No. Continued looking at me, bewildered. I mean, well, not much, eh? Just to clarify, I don't smoke, drink, or do anything like that. And then again, I didn't typically sleepwalk either, or dream of fish people for that matter. So then, what the hell was going on? In the end, I just copped to the sleepwalking alibi, which I could tell he had a hard time buying. Despite this, probably because it was 3:30 in the morning, he just shook his head and said, screw it, and went back to bed. Just keep it down next time, will you? Oh, yeah. Sorry to wake you. But what the hell happened? How did I get here? Then another question popped into my head. How much further would I have gone if Caleb hadn't woken me up? I started thinking about the dream again, standing at the ocean, facing Carly. Was that where I was going? To the ocean? Why? Now, obviously, the simplest explanation to all of that was that I was a love-struck dumbass, and I guess my subconscious was trying to act out my latest wet dream. I mean, this was brought on, or likely was anyway, by Carly kissing me on the cheek. Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. I'm just having a weird dream about a girl and started sleepwalking. With that, I decided to go to bed. But going back to sleep was nigh on impossible. Instead, I spent the remainder of that night watching Netflix on my phone. About 6 o'clock or so, with the sun just starting to peek out above the horizon, I get a call from Carly. Hello, I answered, still pretty groggy. I was still tired, even if I couldn't actually sleep. Hey there. Listen, you doing anything big tonight? No, not really. Why? You want to meet up at the beach later on tonight? Yeah, sure. What time? About 6-ish, when the sun starts going down. You're on. I heard a giggle on the other end before saying, Awesome. See you there, handsome. She hung up after that, and then I laid back, smiling, watching the sunrise through the window. Petey, old boy, you've done it again. All that day I felt as free as the seagulls that were flocking on the beach, scrounging for breadcrumbs. Nothing was going to ruin my day. Well, Caleb noticed this too. What's got you so hyped, huh? I just grinned. Let me guess, it's that one girl, ain't it? Maybe, I replied, not at all subtly. Why? Well, I had to figure it was either that, or you're still tripping ass on whatever it was you were on last night. Well, that made me pause. Up to then, I'd actually forgotten about that little incident. Speaking of which, I gonna get any kind of story on what the fuck was going on there? That, I replied, chuckling embarrassingly. I don't know. I guess I was just sleepwalking. Sleepwalking, huh? He scoffed and said, Well, they do say there's a first time for everything. But I'm still wondering what was making you wig out the way you were. What do you mean? I mean, you was flopping around worse than a live fish on a grill. You were also whispering something in your sleep, something about, wait for me or something, I don't know. Now I was curious. See, like I'd been saying, I wasn't a sleepwalker. The same would apply to talking in my sleep as well. At the same time, it's not like I could call bullshit either. I mean, I was standing out in my underwear after apparently sleepwalking. That plus the utterly weird-ass dream making my sleep pretty restless, and it all seemed to add up to what Caleb was saying. What wasn't adding up, though, was why. Why did it happen? Why, after all my life of never having any problems with sleeping, being known to sleep through most of the noise of the city where I live, why am I now having incidents like what happened the previous night? I thought back again to the water park. I had fun with you, handsome. Carly, I wondered. Is she really the reason why? Yes, I know that sounded cheesy enough to make every Hallmark Channel director blush. I mean, well, we'd only just met. But what other explanation was there? Oh, something else, far off in the back of my head, was telling me that there was another aspect of this. That this may not be some love at first sight, destined to be together forever type of deal here. But then, what is it exactly? I decided then that I'd ask Carly when I saw her that evening. How that'd help, I wasn't sure, but the way I figured, it's the only way I was going to get some kind of answer. So the day passed with me and Caleb just screwing around at the boardwalk. I had fun, of course, but at the same time I just couldn't help but think about the ocean, about Carly. Couldn't really explain it, but I was itching to go to the beach right then and there. No, well, actually it was more than that. I felt compelled, summoned to the beach somehow. Not only this, but my entire body felt hot as well. My insides felt like they were cooking inside my skin. I had to get out of my clothes. They were too hot. My mouth was dry. I needed water. I needed the ocean. Yo, Pete, I heard a voice shouting behind me. What the hell are you doing? I snapped back around to see Caleb standing in line for the ice cream stand, looking confused at me. Looking down, I saw that I was, right there in the open, stripped buck-ass nude. I could see a crowd gathering around. I froze up. I stammered. Dude, put your freaking clothes back on. Quick as I could, I scrambled to put my jeans back on before me and Caleb scurried out of the boardwalk and back to the condo. We made it back, after slamming and locking the door, making sure the cops weren't on their way. He instantly started pressing me as to what had just happened. I don't know. I swear to God. Look, he said, exasperated. I need you to be straight with me, okay? Are you high right now? Are you stashing any drugs around here? What's gotten into you? 'Cause you're really starting to freak me out a bit here. I shook my head. I'm telling you, I don't know. I'm not high. I just don't know what happened. Okay. Well, can you at least tell me what was going through your head when you decided to just up and present yourself for God and the world to see? I don't know. I felt hot, like I was in an oven. I felt like I was wanting to get out of my skin. I remember wanting to go to the ocean really badly for some reason, like I was being, I don't know, called to it. He stood, blinking at me in confusion. That's all I remember. I'm serious, though. I'm not high. He rubbed his eyes. He was just as lost as I was, if not understandably more so. So let me get this straight here, he said, sighing. You're feeling called to the ocean, and you feel like your skin's too hot, which then makes you wander off and strip out in the open. Twice now. All of this, and you're not high. My face fell into my hands. Despite that being exactly what happened, how could I make him understand that? Hell, how was I supposed to make myself understand that? Oh, Frank, I don't know, man. I cried through my palms. He sighed and said, Look, bro, we've been buds since high school, okay? You know you can tell me shit. I got your back. Just tell me what's going on. I don't know, I exclaimed. How many times do I have to say it? I don't know. Ever since last night, after Carly left the water park. He interrupted, a grin parting from the corner of his lip. So that's what this is all about. Why didn't you just say that in the beginning? Say what? That little girl's got you by the balls. He threw his head back then and cackled, but I wasn't amused by this. What are you talking about? Oh, come on, dude. Ever since you bowled her over at the movies, you've been going nuts about her. Now, after seeing her at the water park, all dolled up in a swimsuit, well, you're freaking whipped. He chuckled again. Whatever, man. Screw this, he said, getting up and stomping towards the door. I felt his hand grab my shoulder, stopping me. Oh, where the hell do you think you're going? Out, I snapped, agitated at his snide remarks. As well as this, I started feeling hot again, stuffy, really hard to breathe. He started rapping his knuckles on my forehead. Hello? Anyone home? You just forget that the cops are probably looking for you after that little stunt at the boardwalk. Look, I'll be fine. Just move. I batted his hand away and continued for the door. I could feel my legs now getting lighter and lighter, weaker. Well, you plan to tell me where you're sauntering off to? I glared at him. My vision started to blur a bit, but I could still see him. The beach. There, happy now, Dad? I opened the door. Outside, the sky was starting to turn a bright, burning orange. The sun was going down. God, I have to go to Carly. I have to get to the ocean. My vision blurred more and more now. My head began to spin. God, I felt so hot, so dry, I was burning up. I had to get to the ocean, quick. Before I knew it, I was taking off at full speed. My mind was blank. Only one thing occupied my focus. Getting to the ocean, seeing her. My legs were weak and my lungs were all but flaccid, but I didn't care. I was going to get to the beach, to the ocean. The world around me started to warp, looking more and more round it. The closer I got, the hotter I felt, inside and out. I imagined the way the waves would cool me off once I'd made it. It'd feel like being a fish. Soon, I was able to see it, the beachfront. It's almost empty, being that the sun was half gone now. There, almost silhouetted against the sunset's burning red beam, Carly stood, facing me, waiting for me, calling to me. When I made it to the shoreline, she smiled. I'm glad you made it, Pete, she cooed. I stood, breathless, burning up and feeling weak. The way my body felt, I thought my skin would melt off like butter in a microwave. Still smiling, she curled her finger at me, winking. It's time to come with me. I began staggering mindlessly towards her. I saw her take baby steps backwards with every step I took towards her. The water felt cool across my skin as my feet entered. Not too hot, not too cold. It was soothing. The further I waded in, the more my body seemed to cool off. Or more than that, it seemed to go numb, like it wasn't even there anymore. This started from my feet and continued throughout my body the further I entered. She continued stepping backwards, descending further into the tide. From behind her I saw what looked like dorsal fins approaching in my direction. What the hell? Are those sharks? Despite this, I kept moving forward. I couldn't stop. The fins started circling around me and Carly. Carly finally disappeared, and I dove head first after her. The ocean was murky, making it impossible to see how deep it was at the bottom. It seemed to go on forever as well. I swam and swam as hard as I could, struggling to continue, forcing myself downward. As I went along, I felt sharp, searing pains shoot throughout my body, starting from my ribs. It felt like someone had taken a serrated knife across my body, flaying me open. When I looked down, though, my eyes widened when I saw 3 large gashes, or slots, opened wide across them. What the... God, what's happening to me? And when I went to feel them, my heart almost stopped completely, seeing that there were now large, fleshy webs connecting between my fingers. I could feel panic course through me, and I began flailing frantically to pull myself back to the surface. Eventually, I couldn't feel my arms or legs anymore. In spite of this, I noticed I wasn't sinking. Instead, I just floated there, suspended in the middle of the ocean depths. All around me, I watched as a bunch of figures started swimming around. They swam in one large horde all around me. A school of fish, essentially, forming a sort of ring around me. The longer I watched, the more I was able to distinguish a few of them individually. That's when I realized. These were the same fish people from my dream. All of them were green and scaly, with webbed hands and gills across their ribs and necks. I could see their rounded, marbled eyes examine me as they revolved around me. And then, suddenly, they stopped. They now floated still like I was, seeming to defy gravity, as one of them floated up from directly below me. As it swam closer, I could see that it was female, just like in my dream, with scaly, slippery breasts and an hourglass-shaped body. She also had long, light-coloured strands that resembled hair, though likely wasn't hair, flowing from her head. Her mouth parted in what I guess was a smile, exposing many rows of small, ivory-inlaid teeth. She took my hands in hers, and from around me I heard the simultaneous sounds that reminded me of what a humpback whale sounds like when doing a mating call. I could do nothing except float there, my body being too exhausted. Her lips began to move and, just very faintly, I could hear her say, in a deep-toned version of Carly's voice, "Kiss me, my love." She then worked her webbed hand up to my neck, cupping it, before meeting her lips to mine. The moment our lips touched, the whale-calling noise from the others increased in pitch. Her lips stayed stuck to mine for almost a full minute, when, from the corner of my eye, I noticed the others begin to disperse and start swimming around frantically, the way bees do when the hive is disturbed. She pulled away and looked behind me, opening her mouth and letting out a heart-stopping shriek. When I looked behind me to see what the commotion was about, my own jaw dropped. It was Caleb, swimming head-first straight for me. A relief flowed through me. Oh God, I'm saved. He'll be able to get me out. My relief was cut off, however, as I watched them begin to swarm around him. He struggled furiously, viciously punching and kicking at his assailants, but it did him no favors. They were all too quick to sink their piranha-like teeth into his flesh and have at him. Some of them grabbed at his flailing limbs and began pulling, causing them to start ripping from his body. I could see a cloud of red spread across the murky water. Caleb's eyes were wide with horror, his face twisted with excruciating pain as they continued to maul him. I finally managed to break from my early state of entropy, and I darted through the water to try and get him away from them. I was stopped, however, when the fishwoman tightly grasped my ankle. She pulled me back to her, embraced me and said, "Stay with me, handsome. We'll never die. We'll always be together down here." She moved in to kiss me once again when I shoved her away. For a second she was still, her rounded eyes somehow opened wider in shock before she let out another shriek and darted through the water towards me. With quicker reflex than I ever thought possible, I dodged her just as she would have seized me. I was then able to grab her and sink my own teeth, now serrated like hers and the others, into her neck. She let out a series of sharp screams that echoed throughout the abyss around us as she squirmed against me. With a single jerk of my head, I tore a chunk from her scaly neck the size of my palm. Her body almost immediately relaxed, and I let go of her. She fell slowly to the dark, boundless depths below. When I looked up, I saw the others staring back at me, horrified and disgusted. Having all but devoured Caleb by that point, I could tell that I was now their second course after what I'd just done. Thinking quickly, I took off, shooting straight up through the water. I didn't dare chance a look behind me. I didn't need to, their enraged shrieks signaling to me that they were gaining on me, and fast. I focused solely on the surface of the ocean, and soon I was able to see it, the surface. With one final push, I did it. I broke the surface, and from there I quickly scrambled back to the shore before collapsing, exhausted once again. It was at least a good 10 or 15 minutes that I just laid there, completely spent both physically and mentally. It was sort of a slow digression, the thoughts and emotions I felt next. Starting with relief. I'd made it out. Not only that, but my body looked normal again. looking like regular human flesh rather than a fish like it was earlier. Then came complete confusion. What was that? I mean, what the fuck just happened there? What was happening to me? This was then replaced by grief over Caleb. My friend, who'd always had my back since high school, who tried to save me from whatever the fuck that was in the ocean, was now fish food. Finally, this was capped off with a sense of raw terror. God, they're after me now, aren't they? I knew they wanted to kill me for what I'd done down there. I'd seemingly betrayed them and murdered one of their own. And for that, they wouldn't forgive me. I was able to stumble my way back to the condo, where I immediately began packing everything of mine that I could find. I'd likely forgotten a few things looking back, but I couldn't have cared less. I just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge the first chance I could. By sunrise, I was on the highway, heading out of Myrtle Beach. I haven't gone back there since. I never want to. They're still there, I just know it. Somewhere, deep beneath the ocean, far further down than most will ever see. They're still there, waiting, longing for me to return so they can finish me. And they'll never stop, for they don't die like the rest of us. Now, though, I suppose, neither do I. I still don't know exactly how my body became the way it is, but I'm willing to bet it had something to do with Carly. How or why, though, I don't think I'll ever be able to tell you. All I can say is, I'm scared. I don't want to go back, but it's getting harder and harder to resist. My body feels so hot all the time, and I can't physically exert myself much at all anymore without feeling breathless and weak. The past 2 years now, I've shut myself away in my house, living as a hermit, essentially. I've managed to get by so far by making money working from home on my computer, along with living off of delivery pizza and takeout. But I'm worried it won't last much longer. Even as I write this, my body feels so hot, and I grow weak, barely able to even stay conscious enough to type. It's the ocean. I can feel it. It's calling me to it, and I don't want to go. What Sheila Wants by Corpse Child. I just wanted to make her happy, that's all. I just wanted to make her happy with me again. Was that so wrong? I mean, what did I do to deserve this? Okay, so maybe I cheated, but I felt horrible for it, and I wanted to make it up to her. God, what am I supposed to do? Sheila, if you're reading this, I'm sorry, okay? I'm fucking sorry, just please let me go. It was a couple of nights ago while at a party that I was going to town on Clarissa, the dirty little side piece that I'd mentioned before. I remember how dull it felt, and how I almost couldn't even finish. I mean, she hadn't come either, even after 12 straight minutes. Eventually I managed to make it work before I called it quits that night and headed home. To be perfectly honest, I was actually getting kind of sick of the old routine, sneaking out just about every Friday night and running around with Clarissa at parties. It was fun for a while, yes. There, I fucking said it. But I didn't feel right anymore. We'd been doing it for over 3 months by then, and I guess I was finally growing a bit of a conscience near the end, you know. And of course I knew Sheila wasn't buying my lame-ass, got caught up at work late again stories anymore. Well, looking back, I wouldn't be surprised if she never believed that lie to begin with. Either way, I knew by the way she'd grown distant with me after about the 5th or 6th time that she was just about done with me. Make no mistake, I loved her. I still do. I always will. But I don't know, I guess I just needed a bit more. I know how fucked up that sounds, and believe me, whether or not I actually survive this, I know my place in hell is booked for that. Nevertheless, I love Sheila, and I hope that, somewhere in her heart, she can realize this. So anyway, that was the night I finally broke things off with Clarissa for good. I decided I needed to be a man and come clean with my wife. Even if she already knew, I knew it was going to continue eating away at me unless I got it out. The way I figured, she'd at least respect my apology a little more, finding it to be a bit more genuine if I just came out and freaking said it. When I got home, I found her on the couch, the lights dim. "All right, Ted, you can do this. Just spit it out." Look, honey, I've been fooling around behind your back with another woman." Her face was stone cold numb when I said this. The silence hung in the air for a solid moment. The two of us locked in a staring contest. I stood frozen, waiting for her to do or say something. I wasn't sure what I was expecting her to do or say, granted. I wasn't sure whether to duck and cover, bracing for her to grab the nearest blunt object and go full throttle on me, or scream like a banshee at me till her throat gave out. Would she cry? Maybe tell me she hated me and that I'd broken her heart. Maybe she'd retaliate by telling me she'd been fucking another guy as well. What was she going to do? Well, let me tell you exactly what she did. Nothing. No curses, no screaming, no tears. Nothing. She just continued to stare at me numbly, her lovely amber eyes boring straight through me, through my soul. I think this scared me more than any of the various other reactions could have. I wasn't expecting silence. Because of that, I didn't know what I was supposed to do or say. More than this, though, this hurt me because deep down her silence was more deafening than her screaming. She hated me. "Sheila, I love you. I'm so sorry." My voice began to crack as I said this. Tears started stinging my eyes. These were tears of complete shame and disgust with myself. Still, she just stood, staring. "Sheila, please, I'm sorry." Nothing. She made no movement. Motionless. Still. Numb. "Sheila?" I whimpered. "Please, baby, say something." Silence. My heart rate began spiking. "Please, say something, goddammit." I grabbed her shoulders and was about to shake her when I felt her hands slowly grab mine. Her hands were as gentle as they always were, yet somehow I could feel the malice emanating from them as she slowly and gently removed my hands from around her shoulders. "Don't," she said in a voice as monotone as an answering machine. Her face hadn't changed. She still stared straight through me. "Don't worry about it. I don't even care anymore." What are you... "I don't care, Ted. About your apology, your excuses, your affair. I don't care anymore. You couldn't come clean on the multiple times I gave you, so I gave up." I was speechless. I scrambled to find something, anything to say. To tell her that she was wrong, that things would be different, having ditched Clarissa for good. But how could I? She was right, I'd had ample opportunities to fess up, and instead I continued to lie through my teeth to her face so I could keep doing it. "Sheila, baby, I said I don't care anymore, and I mean it." She then turned and walked into our room. I followed after her. "Wait, Sheila," I cried. "Please, let me make it up to you." She didn't respond. I saw her begin zipping up her old suitcase with all of her clothes inside. "What is this?" I asked, despite knowing good and damn well what was going on. "I can't be here anymore, Ted. This is a house of lies. I'm moving back in with my mother." My heart stopped. She zipped up the last suitcase and started toward the door when I stopped her. "Wait, please, give me one more chance," I begged. "I've given you multiple chances. I'm done. End of story." She attempted to push past me then, but I stayed firm, blocking the doorway. "Please, don't go. I'll do anything. Just please, don't go." She looked into my eyes again, letting go of the suitcases. I had her attention. "Anything?" she asked, her voice remaining as dead as before. "Anything you want, I promise. Whatever you want from me, or what you want me to do, baby, it's yours." She just stood for a solid minute, squinting, her eyes piercing into me, like she was weighing the sincerity of my statement with her eyes. Her blank face returned, and she said, turning and climbing into bed, "We'll see." I'm tired, but I can't sleep with a cheating bastard like you lying next to me. Yeah, of course, I said, trying to hold in my breath of relief. I still had a chance to fix what's been broken. Well, I'll sleep on the couch as long as... Oh no, she piped up. I don't want you in this house with me tonight. I swallowed hard. Yeah, of course, hon, I said reluctantly. I then turned and left the room. I walked out and decided to camp in the car for the night. My car's a small 2006 Altima, which meant that trying to get comfortable in it was a friggin' nightmare in itself. What was worse was that being in the middle of summertime and all, it felt like it was 95 degrees or better, despite it being nighttime. Well, I couldn't turn on the AC either, or I ended up risking running down the battery. Well, it was unpleasant, sure, but if it was what she wanted, well, I didn't get much sleep that night. The sun took its sweet time coming back up too, which didn't help. Nevertheless, I managed to power through and catch maybe 45 minutes to an hour's worth of sleep before 6 a.m. rolled around, bringing the first hints of dawn. Part of me was relieved. I thought, maybe she'd at least let me back in the house now, right? How fucking naive. No, instead when I got out of the car and tried to go inside, the door was locked. My key wasn't working either. Somehow it was like something was lodged in the keyhole on the other side. I stood there jerking on the handle like a maniac for about another minute when my phone buzzed. I looked to see that it was a text from Sheila. Don't even think about it. I don't want you in the same house as me. My eyes went wide. I looked up to our bedroom window to see Sheila standing there staring down at me. I started typing back. Okay, but I'd like to talk to you about this. She began typing again. I'm not ready to talk just yet. I'm not sure what I want from you yet, if anything. My heart sank again, reading those last two words. If anything. Those two words stung me more than I ever thought they could. Desperately, I started typing back. I understand. Just let me know when you're ready to talk. Like I said, I'll do anything you want. I just want to start over. I love you. A minute later, my phone buzzed again with a reply. We'll see. That was the last thing that was said before she drew the curtains and walked away from the window. I sighed. Part of me wanted to cry. I really wanted to make things work here. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Just calm down, Ted. Let her think it over. With that, I decided to get back in my car and drive around to look for a place to stay until Sheila was ready to talk again. Or at least let me in the house again, whichever came first, I suppose. I decided to get a room at the hotel just a few streets down. Wasn't cheap, but I guess that was really only a small price to pay in the end, given what I'd done. Hell, it's a hell of a lot smaller price to pay than the situation I'm in now. God damn it, Sheila, I'm sorry. It was that night that I got a text from her. Did you mean what you said? Well, my heart was instantly set racing. Yes, of course. I love you. I've always loved you, I promise. I meant it too when I say that it eats me inside knowing that I've hurt you. I meant about you saying you'd do whatever I wanted. Do you mean that? I paused for a moment. I wasn't sure how to proceed. I mean, of course I wanted to immediately shoot back with, yes, dear, anything. But for whatever reason, something, I don't know, just some feeling, told me something was just off somehow. Do you, Ted? This jolted my focus again. I began typing. Yes, Sheila, I meant that. I love you, and I want to make things work. Can we talk about this in person? She didn't respond after this, though. And that night was spent with me pacing the hotel room, constantly checking my phone, despite my ringer being on. My head and heart both felt like they were in a race with one another, seeing which one could make me go dizzy first, and how rapidly they both spun in a chaotic spiral. Why wouldn't she answer? What was she talking about? Did I mean it? What was she planning? What does she want from me? Well, that, I think, was probably what tore me up the most. Just like before, I wasn't sure what to expect from her here. We'd been married for almost 2 years, and never had I seen her like this, so cold and bitter. Yeah, I get it, I fucked up, but that just made this all the more confusing to me, especially with the way she was asking if I'd do anything. What was she trying to do here? Even cycling through every conceivable possibility, I couldn't settle on any definitive answer to that question. Obviously, because of this, the idea of trying to sleep that night was a pipe dream in itself. I stayed glued to my phone all through the night, anticipating a text or something from Sheila, but nothing came. It wasn't until that morning that I was abruptly jolted to attention by the buzz of a text message. In one fluid motion, I swiped my phone to see what it was. It was a message from Clarissa. Hey, so I thought you didn't want to see me anymore. Already my mind was quickly overloading with all new questions, on top of the already damn near innumerable present, about why of all people Clarissa was hitting me up. I texted back that I didn't, that we were done, before asking her why she still had my number. Well then, why does it say in your Facebook that you're planning on a date with me to the drive-in theater in an hour? Well, now I was thrown. I was about to call her bullshit, telling her to cut it out with whatever game she was trying to play with me here and lose my number, when she shot back with a screen cap of a Facebook post. It was a post from me, from my profile, that had her tagged, reading, "Can't wait to see you there, baby doll." Beside this was a flirt and a kissy face. Well, I was frozen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I actually had to go into my Facebook myself just to see if this was real. And sure as hell it was, but how? Up until right then, I'd not even fucking been on Facebook. Hadn't even glimpsed it, far less posted. Yet there it was, posted to my feed only about 2 hours before. I didn't post that. Sure you didn't. Just like you didn't want to have me no more. She followed this with a wink emoji and a kiss. Damn it, look, I'm serious. I don't know what's going on here, but I didn't write that. I don't want to see you anymore. I want to be with my wife. Now, lose my number and don't text or call me again. She responded with a flirty face. Okay, Tiger, I get it. Playing hard to get her. Well, we'll see about that. Well, I was about to block her number when something odd struck me about the last message. We'll see about that. I wasn't sure at that moment why, but it sounded ominous to me in a way. See about what? Well, she didn't answer that, though. I looked again at the Facebook post. That can't be right, I thought. Something's up, I know it. Well, exactly what that something was, though, at the time was, of course, just as good a guess as anyone else. All I knew was that nothing made sense here. Why was Clarissa thinking I wanted to go on a date with her to the old drive-in after I'd made it brutally clear to her that I was done fooling around on my wife with her? Then I realized something else. Why there? That old spot doesn't even have the drive-in anymore. It's just a vacant lot with only the old equipment shed at the back behind where the screen used to be, having sat long abandoned for a couple of years now. Why would she think I wanted to take her there? Well, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Sheila. Come by the house in 2 hours. I've thought about it, and I think I'm ready to talk to you about this. Well, I wanted to jump, both out of joy but also out of my skin in fear. What was I supposed to tell her about my date with Clarissa? I mean, sure, I didn't make that post, but what good was that going to be? She wouldn't believe that. I know that's my own damn fault for having lied to her so many times before, but damn it, I was over that now. I was over Clarissa. Well, maybe she doesn't know. I closed my eyes. Just calm down, calm down. She wants to give you one last shot. I took a deep breath then. Just keep your head down, give her what she wants, and forget Clarissa. And with that, I got dressed and headed out. I stopped by the flower shop and grabbed a bouquet of flowers, specifically requesting carnations and roses, her favorites. When I got to the house about 20 minutes early, I shot her a text that I was outside waiting. 2 seconds later, the phone buzzed. 1 minute. No problem. Take your time, hon. Only another minute or so later, I saw the front door to the house open. Sheila stepped out onto the front porch, looking absolutely drop-dead fucking beautiful. I'm talking she looked like she did when she was 18 in senior year of high school when we first met. Tight blue tank top, skinny jeans, but no makeup. She never needed any. Not back then, and sure as hell not now. She looked at me, smiling. My heart started cutting backflips in my chest. Hope wasn't lost. There was still a chance. I could save my marriage. You look beautiful, honey, I said, excited. She giggled. I went to try and put my arm around her, but stopped when she recoiled away from me. For a second, her smile fell and was replaced with one of disapproval. I retracted. We still weren't at hugging level yet. I held my hand up and lowered my head. Yeah, my bad. Forgiven. Now, let's go. I've got the perfect place in mind. Where? Her look of disapproval returned. That's not for you to worry your head about. You just drive, and I'll lead the way. I just bowed my head, conceding, before turning the engine over and backing out of the driveway. She told me to back out from the right and headed towards the road leading downtown. We began heading downtown in relative silence, broken only whenever Sheila gave me another direction to turn. Not that I didn't want to talk. Far from it. At the same time, though, something gave me the impression the feeling wouldn't be reciprocated by her. Turn here and stop, she said, pointing to the right turn branching off from the main part of the downtown area. I did so, leading us to where else but the empty lot where the old drive-in theater used to be. I was confused, obviously, but even more than this, I was nervous. It didn't help either that Clarissa's Honda was parked out front. What the hell? What's she doing here? I could feel sweat forming in bullets on my forehead and dropping like rain. My heart was through the roof. What was I going to do? What's Sheila going to say when Clarissa sees me and tries to get all lovey-dovey with me? Why does Sheila want to come here? I turned to her, trying not to make it look so obvious that something didn't feel right to me. I didn't want her to lose her patience, and plus I was banking on her not having seen the mysterious Facebook post that I didn't create in the first place. I needed this to work with me and Sheila, and this would have fucked things up every which way from Sunday. She looked back at me, smiling. I noticed she looked like whatever was going on and whatever she'd planned was, well, she was genuinely excited about it, and this only further confused me. What could she be so excited about? There was literally nothing there, just the old abandoned shed. Still smiling, she turned and started getting out of the car. Come on, follow me. Hey, wait, I said, gently placing my hand on her shoulder. She stopped, turning back to me. What's going on? How come you wanted to come here? There's nothing around. Just trust me and follow. I stayed seated, unmoving. I didn't feel right getting out of the car. Something just felt off, way off. Her smile started to fall once again. You said anything, remember? That made me sigh and relent. I unbuckled my seatbelt and got out to follow her towards the shed. About halfway there, I watched her pull what looked to be a blindfold out of her purse. I stopped walking. Babe, what's that for? She turned and smiled slyly at me, adding an equally sly wink. It was the same one she used to use in the past whenever we decided to spice things up in the bedroom. What do you think? We haven't had any real fun in a while. She walked up and ran her hands gently up my chest. If we're going to start over, teddy bear, why not go wild with it? Despite how nice it felt for her to be touching me again like this, I still couldn't shake the feeling something wasn't right here. Okay, I replied, chuckling nervously. But why here in the middle of nowhere? How come we couldn't have just done this at home? You know, in our bed. She sighed. First, until you make things up to me, that bed isn't ours. And second, why not here? Don't you remember? That Friday night, last day of senior year? This is where we first did it. That actually hit me hard for a moment. She was right, this was our first spot, and I'd actually forgotten. I couldn't help but feel like an even bigger jackass than I already no doubt was. You're right, I said guiltily. She rose and gave me a quick yet sensuous peck on the cheek before leaning into my ear and whispering in a smooth, balmy whisper. I know. Trust me, Teddy. I'll always know more than you'll ever think I do. I've always known how naughty you'd been, and I know how to teach you to never do it again. She then followed this by playfully biting my earlobe. Admittedly, this did start to excite me a bit. I'd forgotten how good she was at that. Well, Clarissa never played like that. It still didn't shake the queasy feeling in the pit of my stomach, though. She then handed me the blindfold and told me to put it on. I obeyed, and she took me by the hand and led me the rest of the way to the shed. I couldn't see anything, but I eventually heard the large metal door of the shed loudly creaking open. I felt Sheila let go of my hand and say, Okay, now take the blindfold off. I did, and what I saw next was enough to make my heart stop dead in my chest. In front of me, illuminated by the light from the open doorway, was Clarissa tied to a chair in the middle of the room with cuts, gashes, and bruises covering nearly every square inch of her face. She looked up at me, her eyes glazed and pitiful, pathetic. What the fuck? I exclaimed, frozen in shock. My shock was broken, however, when I felt something clock me over the back of my head. I was instantly knocked out cold. I awoke, don't even bother asking me how much later, to having frigid ice-cold water thrown in my face. My head was swimming, throbbing, and aching worse than any migraine I'd ever had before. I saw that I was tied to a chair now, too. In front of me, Clarissa stood, stripped down to her bra and underwear, clutching a knife in one hand. Behind her was Sheila, staring at me with that same cold expression she wore when I told her that night about the affair. I groaned weakly. What the fuck? Sheila stepped forward. This is how you're going to make it up to me, Ted. You like playing rough, and you love fucking around with her so much. Well, here you go. Now you'll play as rough as you want. Clarissa took a step forward, raising up the knife. Her eyes were also wide and afraid. I started squirming against my restraints. What the fuck are you doing, Sheila? Look, just let us go. She walked up and delivered a sharp smack across my left cheek that stung. I'm giving you what you deserve, asshole. You wanted to fool around behind my back with this bitch and then lie to my fucking face every time about it. And I just let it go, didn't I? I didn't answer at first, instead trying fruitlessly to wriggle out of the ropes. She smacked me across the face again, harder this time. Didn't I? Yes, I shouted, groaning in pain. I let you have your little fun and rip my fucking heart in half. Well, now I'm gonna get what I want. Have some of my fun. She grinned slyly again. This time, though, it looked a lot less seductive and a hell of a lot more psychotic. She then stroked my cheek and said, I want to see just how much you really love me. Tell me, teddy bear, did you mean it when you said anything? I looked at her, silently pleading like a fucking dog for her to stop all of this and let me and Clarissa go. I could see in her eyes, though, that she was enjoying every second of seeing me like that, completely at her mercy. The devious way in which her smile grew confirmed this. Yes, I muttered. She cupped her hand to her ear, teasing like she didn't hear me. Yes, okay, I said. Look, I love you, Sheila, and yes, I'll do anything you want, okay? Let's just go home, please. She giggled and looked over to Clarissa, who stood holding the knife, frightened. Prove it. I want you to kill her for me. My blood froze. No, Sheila, I can't kill her. So you were lying? No, but Sheila, this is insane. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I am. I'm sorry for being a piece of shit. You deserve better, but Damn it, I'm not killing Clarissa. Her smile vanished, and she untied the ropes holding me. Before I could try and make a run for the door, however, I felt Sheila crack a metal rod over my kneecap, instantly breaking my leg and causing me to fall to the ground, writhing in agony. She bent down to me and whispered, "Then you can do it for yourself, since that's the only person you really care about. You want out? You want to live? Kill her and send me a pic of the body. Oh, and try being cute and calling the cops, and I'll make damn sure they never find you." She held up her phone, turning on a live feed of the inside of the shed, and said, "And like I told you, I'll know if you're being naughty." She then thrust my phone into my chest before turning and walking out. "I'll be waiting, sweetheart," she said as she closed the giant metal door, locking the two of us inside. Clarissa stood quivering. I continued writhing on the ground, groaning and clutching my leg. Suddenly, Clarissa started walking towards me, knife in hand. I couldn't move. I was defenseless, completely at her mercy. She came right on top of me. I closed my eyes, thinking, this was it. I was screwed. I opened my eyes to see that she dropped the knife. She then crumpled to the ground and started crying softly. What are we going to do?" "I don't know. The door's locked. We can't call for help." I winced and yelped in pain. Pain was shooting from my leg all through my body. Clarissa knelt over me. "Here," she said, sniffling. "Let me see your leg." Then she gently rolled up my pant leg. My kneecap was shown to be completely broken, protruding against my skin at an unnatural angle. "Oh my God, are you okay?" I didn't pay attention to her. Instead, my eyes were focused on the knife lying on the ground just less than a foot away from me. She began frantically looking around the room. "There's got to be a key around here somewhere. Hang on." She got up and started pacing around, looking in every corner for a key that I knew wasn't in there. There was only one key to get out. Hey, "Come here," I said, groaning. She didn't hear me at first. While she still wasn't looking, I reached out and grabbed the knife. "Clarissa, I found it. I found the key." "You did?" "Yeah, just come over here and get it so that you can unlock the door. I can't get up." She stopped and ran over to me. She bent down and started looking around. Where is it?" She got no further. The next and last thing I'd hear out of Clarissa were the sounds of her choking and gasping desperately for air. Her eyes bugged out at me. Looking in her eyes, I could see two emotions mixing into one: betrayal and horror. "Oh, I'm sorry." Soon she stopped gasping and collapsed, lifeless. I couldn't help but scream out in anguish at this. I couldn't believe what I'd just done. I just killed somebody. Not just that, but somebody that, even though they'd helped in destroying my marriage, I still actually cared about. The worst part was, like Sheila said, it was just my own selfish gain. But what else was I supposed to do? I said I'd do anything. I'm afraid, though, that it may have been for nothing. Not knowing what else to do, I snapped a picture of Clarissa and sent it to Sheila, but she didn't reply. This was 3 days ago, and I'm still trapped in here with no way out and unable to even move or call for help. All of this, and I still haven't heard a single fucking word from her. I'm scared. I'm gonna fucking die in here, aren't I? You seeing this, Sheila? Are you happy now? Can I please be let out? I'm sorry, goddammit. God, anybody, I'll do whatever you want. Just let me out.
Well, my dear friends, to be honest, I've been not exactly keeping it a secret, but my health has been a little bit worse than I have been letting on in recent videos. I love you so much. Thank you to everybody for all the kind words you've been saying. It really does mean a lot. You know, I love doing this, and I've been doing this for 10 years now, and long may I continue. But it's been a difficult month or two, to tell you the truth. It really has. And I've done everything right, got medical help, seen professionals, taking the right medication, so everything is going to be good. But I just really want to say again, thank you for all the support you've been showing me. And everything will be back on track here in the immediate future. Okay. So yeah, thanks again. Just going to keep saying it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love doing this for you, and I love the fact that you appreciate it, and you're looking out for me as well. Okay. Back again tomorrow night, I think, with something amazing, something new, something beautiful. Till then, you'll enjoy this evening, yeah?
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.